Now, we've been talking about intelligence. So one of the important things that I introduced in the teaching was that there's only one I in the universe. Now, you've heard of God realization and so-called self-realization with a capital S they put on it. Well, that's only the realization of the one I. So that's supposed to be the highest state in the spiritual aspiration. The realization of the one I in the universe, which is the God, the truth, the one intelligence. So my teaching says there's only one I in the universe, and it demonstrates that by showing you that you always call here I. You've never called the person next to you I. You've never called your children I. You've never called anyone else I, and you never will. There's only one I, and that's demonstrated in your own life, your living life. I am doing this. I am going here. I believe. I. Now that's the truth. There's only one I in the universe. And the reason for that is there's only one intelligence in the universe. And when you point to your body and say, I am going to the shops, indeed your body is going to the shops, but something else is there. The intelligence in your body. Now the intelligence is the same as God, because there's only one I in the universe, and I am intelligence. But I am no body in particular. And although I am in this body, I am no body in particular. So to demonstrate that, I say, I am so subtle, so utterly without attributes, so utterly indescribable, that I am what's looking out of your eyes at this moment. Now you couldn't say what that is. You could say it's your attention, you could say it's your intelligence, you could say it's your focus, but really, what's looking out of your eyes? Now this is a very important exercise, because if you are true to the situation and the question, you will say, I don't know. I don't know what it is. And that is the truth. I don't know what it is. This intelligence is the closest you can get to God. And when you really realize that, you are that. You are nothing. Because it is nothing looking out of your eyes. That is I. That is intelligence. Intelligence is nothing. But it makes everything possible. Because the intelligence looking out of your eyes is the same intelligence looking out of any animal's eyes. The same intelligence looking out of the person's eyes next to you. Same intelligence. Has no attributes, so it doesn't matter whether the personalities are different, whether the experience is different, whether the karma or the past is different, makes no difference to I. I am always here. In the animal's eyes, in the eyes, my own eyes that see the animals, and even when I close my eyes and all the other eyes disappear, I still am. A still, silent something or other that allows me to have knowledge of being or have knowledge of nothing. That's I. Now what I varies according to the constitution of the body that it is in. So we say there's so many eyes, we think there's so many eyes in the universe, 5,000 million of them, as many bodies, but it's not true. It's the one eye looking out of all the eyes. Like now. Now if you start thinking about I, you then engage this problematical self. You don't have to work out what I'm saying. If you listen, you don't have to think. For goodness sakes, you are looking out of your eyes. I am looking out of my eyes. Do you have to think about that? There's the demonstration of it. If I have a crow's body and all the system and the constitution of a crow, who's bound up with its feathers and its skin and its beak and its appetites, all that represents the constitution or the matter in which I appear. So, I am the intelligence that never varies in the crow, but the constitution of the body makes the intelligence seem to do different things. But really the intelligence is only doing the same thing as it's doing with you. It's just being, allowing the reflection that allows a crow to be crow. But its matter is different to your matter. And even in human beings, in all the various people in this room, the constitution of our bodies, it seems to be the same, made of flesh and molecules or whatever it is made up of, cells. But really there's something more subtle in our constitution. And if we go into the ordinary scientific explanation, there's the hereditary. That is, what's handed down from the parents and the grandparents and the line of which we have come out of. But then what makes us different, each of us, is also our past. For no two people's past is the same. And so the intelligence in each of us has to appear to behave differently, but the intelligence doesn't. It's the constitution of the body, its past, its experience, its hereditary factors. The intelligence remains forever still, silent. Like now. Now that is God in the first instance. That is I. The old Bible quotation starts to have meaning. Be still and know that I am God. Now the only way you can be still is to be intelligent. And to be intelligent is to be intelligence. What's looking out of your eyes? And to take it further, what's looking out of your ears? The same thing. The same intelligence. Never moves, never does anything, absolutely poised, like now. And what's looking out of my skin? Same thing. I pervade this body, and yet I do nothing. I am absolutely still, always there. In sleep, I never sleep. I'm always there, always in this body, always alert through all the senses, always still and silent. Now that's the truth. And when the Eastern people put a capital S for self to distinguish from another so-called self, little else, when they put a capital S on it, they are talking about I, the realization of the great God, the great mystery of the universe, which is I, who makes everything possible. For I could not even see these flowers unless I had intelligence to be able to reflect. But as soon as I start to think about the flowers, I introduce a past factor of naming and judging, and I lose my intelligence. So the idea is to give up naming and judging as much as possible so that I can stay in the presence, in the realization of this I, which is not a capital S for self. I am the equivalent of God or the Most High or the intelligence of the universe. I am that in everybody. But as there is only one I in the universe, or one life in the universe that I can actually know, here it is. You cannot know any other life. Even the person next to you is a form of life. They are not life. Only I, in this body, am life. And then my body starts to disappear because life pervades my body like intelligence. But life has no form until I start to see through my senses. As soon as I go behind my senses, life is. Being is. Me is. The indescribable reflection of I, of intelligence. But if you try to think about anything that I say, you will leave this beautiful state of stillness, of I realization, of I being. I being life. For there's only one life, as I say, and that's in this body, listening to these words. Now there's a new love that I am bringing to this earth, a new realization of love. And you don't have to worry that you've got to remember anything, because this love that I am bringing into the world rises up from within, from the being of love. And it informs the consciousness and informs the awareness. And gradually, a change starts to happen in the individuals. It never happens in the masses. The masses are doomed forever and ever to be born and to die, to be born and to die, until gradually, 1,000,000 years further down, somebody comes to some consciousness of God or love. But otherwise, it's always the individual who has to realize God or love. It's not the person next to you. You can't help the person next to you. You can answer their questions. But whether they've realized God has got nothing to do with it. The only one who lives and who's real is I in that body listening to these words. I am the only one. I am the only one who can be responsible for love, and I am the only lover. And that's called responsibility, isn't it? All the time we keep going into the love of man and woman, because if you can't love woman, you're never going to be a complete man. And that's what I talk about Eastern masters, you see. Eastern masters, many Eastern masters, Tibetan, Buddhists and the various ones, have realized the truth of God within. Now that's a wonderful and a very rare state, to have realized God within. But where I come from, that's only a beginning. That's half the story. Because where love is needed, where the love of God is needed, is in between man and woman's love. That's where all the pain and agony is in existence. Now, I'm not concerned with God, who is out of existence. I have realized God, and God's okay, right? God's fine. Thank you very much, Barry. God's fine. I don't have to do anything about God, because I am so grateful, so wonderful of its beauteous state. I am in that state, right? Now, that's great, because I know God's okay. But man and woman, who are God in existence, is not okay. That's the flaw in it all. In existence, man and woman, God as man and God as woman, is not okay. And would you try to tell me it's okay? And would all the Eastern masters who have realized God try to tell me it's okay in existence? Now they might say, and quite rightly, it doesn't matter. God's in charge, and it doesn't matter. And that's the truth. Nothing matters. As long as I have realized God, I can just walk around and it doesn't matter. But if I am going to be concerned with love in existence as man and woman, like you all are, like everybody is, then to realize God and to realize God as wonderful as it is only half the story. I have to then, where I come from, bring that love through this body into existence and inform man and woman, and if I am a man, inform woman by my divine love, that this is divine love, this is God, and I know that I have been loved by God in form. Now let's get it straight. When man gives up his self, his human self, that is, his angry self, his unhappy self, that's all his human self, when he gradually gives that up, I tell you, God is present in him. The same with woman. When she becomes absence of feelings, absence of emotions, absence of this, that is God in female form. Why not? Why not? Where else is God? You can't show me God. You can pray to God. Well, where do we pray? Up here somewhere. And I understand the impulse to pray up there, but it's not up there at all. It's down there. And God is in me. And my job is to bring the God that I have realized, the love that I've realized, all of you, into this existence where there is very little love. So we've been into all that area, haven't we? I've touched on everything that I possibly can in the time allotted to us about man and woman's love. And I have told you the ultimate truth is that every woman is God in female form and every man is God in male form. That's the ultimate truth. If you want to come down here where all the complications start, you can come down the pyramid and you can argue, and you can argue about love of this and love of that, and you've got a whole pyramid of complication. But when you go up the pyramid, you come finally to man and woman as God, and then when they come in union, in the union of love, somehow or other, God is realized. The pleasure, the wondrous pleasure, the wonder of love is realized.
Everything around us, existence as a whole, contains the reflection of the truth, the reflections of the origins of the human race. It is there, and I will show it to you, if only you can listen and be still. Be yourself. But where we have already failed in a way before we begin, or where our ignorance arises, is in our self-forgetfulness. By choosing to remember other things, we have chosen to forget the most precious thing we ever had. By our lack of profound reflection, by always allowing our current existence to distract us, we have distanced ourselves from the knowledge of our sublime origins. Some men and women once knew where we came from. We weren't always this far from the beginning. But gradually we have forgotten, and at the same time have lost the power to recognize in existence the crystal clear reflections of our origins. What I am going to say now is the truth of existence, a crystal clear reflection for you to ponder on profoundly. We are life. There is no other life in the cosmos. Life anywhere else in the universe is us. Life is one and cosmic in origin, not of the planet. We are cosmic. Our bodies are spacesuits. Without a spacesuit, life can't exist on this alien planet Earth. The spacesuits were designed and developed by cosmic intelligence. Cosmic intelligence is inseparable from the one cosmic life. Starting from nothing, the cosmic aim was to provide in time a suitable vehicle, the human spacesuit, through which cosmic intelligence itself could appear as life on Earth. It was the stupendous undertaking of all time. Over what we have conceived as nearly 2,000 million years of evolution, since the first life forms of the species are said to have appeared on the planet, the future human spacesuit was biologically cultured and cultivated with incomparable genius and precision. Today, the human spacesuit, the ultimate life form of all the species, is complete, but with only human intelligence. As the future vehicle or expression on Earth of cosmic intelligence, it is still evolving and has a good way to go. Human intelligence, being less evolved than the human spacesuit itself and not yet cosmically aware, has an extremely limited view of the cosmic marvel, the spacesuit through which it operates. For instance, it can't grasp, let alone appreciate, the following truth, unless you, the individual, has started to take the next evolutionary step forward towards cosmic awareness. That truth is, the existence of the planet, together with the perceived universe, is created every moment by the projection of life and intelligence out through the amazing human spacesuit. As ourselves, that is, before life is projected out through the spacesuit, each of us is ourself, the one self, life within. Life is not divisible. It only becomes divisible or differentiated in the forms we see projected through the spacesuit. We see other spacesuits, not other life. We, that is I, am life. Once upon a time, which is another way of saying when man and his spacesuit were very young and the world was very different, the rulers of the various nations on Earth were remarkable individuals. They still remembered or realized that they were in fact the one indivisible life behind the spacesuits. To communicate this, they used the plural we when speaking of themselves, as royalty sometimes copies today. The singular I was used by their less evolved but more involved forgetful subjects to affirm and establish a formal but unreal and fundamentally ignorant personal individuality or identity. The spacesuits became multiple millions of I, representing the one self or life. This one self or life, I am, always was, and always will be. I want to give you some idea in your own experience of what it means to be the one self, the life beyond existence. You will appreciate that I have to talk through my spacesuit to your spacesuit, and that in this sense we are both in existence. But on the other side of the spacesuit, deep inside the spacesuit, you and I are not in existence. That doesn't mean we have no being there. It only means we have no existence there comparable to that of seeing, feeling, hearing, tasting, thinking, and knowing through our spacesuit. For instance, when you go into a deep, dreamless sleep and withdraw deep into the spacesuit, you have no perceived existence, no knowledge of that dreamless state. But that doesn't mean you cease to be. In fact, you sometimes awake into existence from sleep, remarking on how extraordinarily good the state was, even though from an existential point of view you knew nothing about it. From that, it's not difficult to understand what happens when you die. You withdraw into the spacesuit beyond its sense projections and become yourself, the one indivisible self, life, leaving behind the battered or worn-out spacesuit that merely created your sense of existence. The spacesuit is really one big sense of knowing, which provides all the knowledge of existence. If you don't know you exist, such as when you're unconscious or dead, you don't exist. People get terrified by this idea. But there's no need to be once you understand that existence is only a projection through the spacesuit anyway, of what you already are on the other side of existence. So you don't have to exist to be yourself. In fact, you are less yourself here in existence than when you are unconscious or dead. You are a long time dead, it is said, and that only means you are all that time your real self, and not just a projection as you are here in existence for a mere 70 or 80 years. Another thing which disappoints people about the truth of death is that becoming one with the indivisible self behind the spacesuit must mean they lose their individuality. No, not true. The incredible truth about the one self is that, in it, individual consciousness is preserved. After death, you are one with this self, this totality of life, and yet you are still your own consciousness, your own aware self. When man and his past were very, very young, he had just entered his spacesuit and was perceiving existence on Earth for the first time. Coming from a place where all life was one, his own self, it could have been a frightful experience to suddenly look out through the senses of the spacesuit and see himself surrounded by an infinitely divided existence. But something he was perceiving in existence, something obviously no longer visible through our spacesuits today, made the transition perfectly natural. He was seeing in existence the reassuring, crystal-clear reflection of his own self, and he was entranced by what he saw, absolutely fascinated. Certainly, his self was appearing in a strange, differentiating medium, but he recognized that self instantly. What was it? Nature. Nature, life, was all around him as existence. There was nothing else but nature in all its uncompromising beauty and wonder. This, he perceived immediately, was his nature, his life, being projected into existence through the marvelous new spacesuit. And despite his nature's unfamiliar form of existence, he not only recognized it, but realized it and loved it as himself. Never could he be alone in this strange exteriorizing Earth existence while his own nature was all it consisted of. Or so it seemed. Being new in his spacesuit, he was not yet attached to it or to the existence it was creating. He was still one with his true self, the one life or nature within, and free to realize this at any time. So he could enjoy both worlds, enter his spacesuit and be in existence, or withdraw from it and be in himself. But in time a serious hitch developed in the spacesuit, what may seem an incredible design oversight. The ceaseless projection of existence as the present also created the endless existence of the past. And as existence in the present is substantial, so is existence of the past. The spacesuit design made no allowance for this mysterious substance of past. Consequently, the man inside of it dismissed the past as an abstract notion, assuming it to just pass and vanish into nothing. But the past kept building up in existence, until eventually it invaded the spacesuit itself. Unaware of what was happening, man started to get stuck in the past, stuck in the spacesuit, stuck in existence. Less and less was he able to withdraw at will into his indivisible self, his inner nature. Soon he was up to his neck in past, fixed in it, forced to look only outwards through the senses and through the memory, the adhesive substance of the past itself that had invaded the spacesuit. Man's free will, the power to reunite at will with his inner self, now faltered, then disappeared. His awareness of nature, as the crystal clear reflection of his own nature, receded, to be eventually forgotten. Although his delight continued in nature and its power to revitalize his now divided being, the supreme knowledge that it was his self vanished. Existence was starting to seem to be all there was. Trapped in his spacesuit, squeezed unbearably by the mounting pressure of the past, and with the knowledge of nothing behind him, man was unable for long to remain a part of the scenery like the rest of nature. He had to go forward, be pushed further into existence. This he did by another remarkable feat of self-projection through the spacesuit. He projected his intelligence out into existence and onto nature. He was now outside himself, outside the spacesuit as we are today. 3 disastrous errors followed. First, he saw nature to be separate from himself, and he determined to control it. Had he realized the truth of his origins, that nature was his own nature, and as such would naturally provide for all his needs, there would have been no problems in existence. But man was no longer himself. He thought the spacesuit was his self. So attached to it by the past was he, that he even identified with the spacesuit's failings, now beginning to show due to its ignorance of the past. And in a further massive stroke of ignorance and self-forgetfulness, he accepted these failings as his own, and excused them by calling them human nature. Incredibly, due to the fundamental ignorance of his projected human intelligence, there were now 2 natures in existence, nature and human nature. Finally, on the beauty and wonder of nature, the nature of the earth, he was about to impose human nature, with horrific results. Human nature, the spacesuit gone wrong, is the exploitation of the present by the past, of what is by what has been. Instead of using the power of his projected intelligence to control human nature, or at least to try to correct the past defect in the spacesuit, he used it to help human nature exploit nature. And as the past and man grew older, strange changes started to appear in the nature of the earth. As man's nature had changed, so nature had to reflect that change. Natural abundance and fertility became patchy, and more under the control of human nature through some spacesuit or groups of spacesuits. As exploitation for the few slowly replaced plenty for all, human nature replaced nature with a new sort of nature, the environment, nature controlled. Instead of simply nature and truth, or nature and man, there was now nature, human nature, and the environment. Man was moving further away than ever from the truth of his origins and himself. Without realizing it, he was replacing the earth with the world. The marvelous spacesuit, that incredibly sophisticated biological robot, had become a monster and the master. And the tragedy was, man failed to see it. But in spite of the spacesuit's usurpation of his life and nature, man would never cease searching in existence for the truth of life he had left and lost. In time, his search for life would lead to the founding of civilization, his search for truth to the achievements of the sciences. But never would he succeed in finding life or the truth in existence, only their fleeting, tantalizing reflection. So instead of truth, he would settle for facts and opinions, and instead of life, for just a better kind of living for his spacesuit. The biggest problem in existence is death, but only to man. Nothing else fears death, because only man has the intelligence to separate death from life. When man and his past were very, very young, he knew nothing of death. He was still himself, still inside nature, looking out of his brand new spacesuit at the wonder of the earth. If his spacesuit was failing, he simply used his free will to withdraw further back into life, the one immortal self. Only after he had stepped outside himself, by projecting his intelligence onto nature, did he discover death. And he was appalled, horror-struck. For there in front of him, mirrored in existence, was the crystal clear reflection of the secret of death, what death was. What he saw, we shall hear what it is in a moment, all men since have chosen to forget and never to confront again. Killing and being killed he had accepted as part of survival, since making nature his contestant. And with his superior intelligence he felt competent to take his chances there without much fear. But death, he realized, was something more than mere dying. Death indeed was in the repelling corpse and stench of the dead spacesuit, yet it was more. It was in the tears, howls, disease, deformity, misery, injury, age, obstinacy, cunning, senility, and madness that he saw reflected in the existence of the other spacesuits around him. Yet it was more than that too. Death was also in the dark he was afraid of, in his disturbing dreams, in the silence and sounds of the night, in the dread of loneliness, in the ache of loss, and in his own uneasy presence. "What is this existence I have entered?" he asked. "It is death, living death," was the crystal clear answer. And in the midst of this terrible uncertainty of death, or living, he craved for the certainty of life, the self he'd left behind and forgotten, the beauty he sensed around him but could not hold. This self he now called God, or gods, and he worshipped it in its reflection, nature, endeavouring to appease and propitiate it, unable to just love it, be it, within himself. Until finally, his human intelligence told him better, and he worshipped nothing. Well, nothing except the hope of tomorrow to escape from today. Thus, man's first confrontation with death was his last. He ran from it, and has been running ever since. Further and further into existence he flees, carving it up with his human intelligence into ever finer slices and slivers of memorable knowledge, questioning everything but the existence of existence, the existence of death. Into nature, into civilization, evolution theory, the microscopic world, the subatomic world, and now out to the planets and towards the stars he runs, always away from himself, always towards another day, another dying, another death. The deeper into existence he speeds, the faster and swifter his treadmill world revolves around him, and the more often he asks, "What's it all about? Where am I going?" And the crystal clear answer he will not hear echoes back out of the reflection of his own existence, "Nowhere, only towards death." Every aspect of reality, that is, the truth of life beyond existence, is reflected at this moment in existence around you. By listening to this story, you are discovering how to discern it. You will notice that no matter how unusual or new the truth is that I am describing, I demonstrate it in existence, related to the fact of your life here, on earth now. Consequently, it is possible for anyone, even a child who has had enough experience of living, to follow the truth I am speaking, provided they can remain sufficiently still to listen in their own experience. However, the impulse can be irresistible for the listener's human intelligence to escape back into existence through the memory, through what has been previously heard or read. What you have heard or read is not your own experience, or you wouldn't have to remember it. The point is, the test of any truth being put to you now or in the future by anyone is to demand that it be demonstrated in existence. If it can't be, it's imagination, or the person doesn't understand what he or she is talking about. This is our protection in the truth against being misled or hoaxed.